Welcome in, everyone, to the Behind the Frenzy podcast. I'm your host, Dean Holzwarth, joined today by Andy McDonald and Jack Doles. Guys, regular season's over. Time for the best part of the season.
Yeah,
it is.
playoffs. Let's go.
Absolutely. And we're still getting warm weather, as we've talked about.
We're still wearing shorts, Andy.
It's 78 degrees today.
Still wearing shorts.
I don't know if it's going to be that warm on Friday. I don't want anybody's hopes up, but
I mean, no rain.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
I checked that on Monday,
and
just so I'm not jinxing
You
anybody.
did not jinx it last week. It was fine.
Those coaches that insist on wearing shorts all the way through the playoffs, they don't look insane at the moment.
No, they do not look insane.
All
right, guys. We're going to go through kind of some first round playoff matchups. First, let's kind of talk about a couple teams that missed the playoffs. I think the big one, Muskegon, first time since 1999.
Just a big surprise. I mean, no one I think would have guessed it before the season. Obviously, with the weird scheduling issues they had, not having a game in the middle of the season might have cost them something. Also, just played some tough opponents, but opponents we've seen them beat in previous years. So I don't think anybody really expected the season to go this way, and I'm sure it's a new feeling for Shane over there, but I don't know where they go from here necessarily, but hopefully they can get that program back to where it was because it's fun to see them in the playoffs every year.
Yeah.
If anybody can figure it out, it's going to be Shane. Great coach. He loves those kids up. They respond to him. I still don't get the whole how is it that Muskegon had 2 open dates?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't the OK Reds supposed to help out here, or the OK Conference?
Yeah.
Right.
It should. They should not have trouble finding these opponents, especially now that you're not penalized for losses.
Right.
That you're rewarded for a tougher schedule.
Yep.
So it makes no sense to me that a school like Muskegon cannot find 9 opponents in a year, and then one of these opponents is from Ohio.
Yeah, so they didn't get the playoff points that they would have.
Yeah,
it was a
exactly.
Michigan school, and obviously that not having a game that week kind of cost them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, more chances, more points. So
we saw a couple of 3 and 6 teams get in. We saw some 4 and 5 teams get in. But when you're 3 and 5 and you're missing a game, that's a whole week of no points. Couldn't overcome that.
Yep. Jensen, another team, I think they were kind of on the brink there, and they did end up winning last Friday. And I think some people thought they might get in. Still a really good season for Jensen.
It really shows that it's way less unsure with this point system if you're going to make it or not. It can come down to the last week and be a lot closer with that kind of situation where even when they did get the win they felt like they might have needed, still wasn't enough. So.
Yep. Speaking of the OK Red, we'll kind of jump into that with Division I. Couple OK Red opponents playing each other again, which is kind of commonplace. In that first round of districts, we have East Kentwood at Hudsonville and Granville at Rockford. East Kentwood at Hudsonville, obviously first-year coach, has done a great job over there. Hudsonville's had a great turnaround this season under Brent Sandy. What's your guys' thoughts about that game?
It's interesting going in with Hudsonville just because I feel like they're the team that kind of started ascending during the season. I don't know if we really expected to be talking about them with some of the wins that they had, but here we are. And East Kentwood's not a team that's going to lay down for them. They've been a team all season, been kind of trying to prove themselves, had some chances for some bigger wins that they didn't get. They get some. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a good one, but I think right now it's hard to stop Hudsonville. I mean, they've been on a run ever since it seems like they won that Rockford game. They've just been on a run that's been tough to stop.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a great year for Hudsonville, and they hoped they'd get this kind of a setup this year. I mean, they had a lot of players that had a lot of repetition and had played a lot of games at a lot of key positions returning. And, they won the Red this year. And so, they get that home date. They'll be home next week if they win this game. And, I think if they end up playing Howell in a couple of weeks, then they've got to go back on the road.
Yep. Hudsonville, quarterback Griff Baker, Brady Van Lake, tremendous athlete, good on both sides of the ball. Defense has been really good this year. So I think they can hurt you in a lot of different ways.
And Granville's such an interesting team, too. I mean, the tough schedule they had early on, going into that game. It's interesting with the schedule they had early on being 0-3 and then getting to where they are now to where they're in the playoffs and have the points to do it. And Rockford is a team that I don't think we expect to talk about having any losses earlier in the season with the way it started and the way the last 5 years it went for them at home and everything else. And now it feels like this game is kind of a little bit more of a toss-up than I would have expected, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you remember 3 of those losses were all crazy finishes where they were in all 3 of those games, led late.
Scored a lot of points, too.
I don't think Granville's a team anybody wants to play right now. Or Rockford also. They didn't win the Red this year, but they had all the all the OK Red championships, and they're still trying to get to Ford Field for the first time in a long time. And so, this would be one of those, they go on a run now, and all of a sudden you're thinking, it's okay, we didn't win the Red this year.
Right, yeah.
But I think they're all going to be looking at Howell, who went out and beat Belleville last week.
Huge win.
So you might be able to win this district, but winning this region is going to be
Very, very tough.
very difficult. But you can't look past your week one opponent because you'll get beat if you do.
For sure.
Yes. Rockford is a team that kind of righted the ship after back-to-back losses, and they've been playing, I think, the way that they expect to play the last 3 weeks. But Rockford-Granville has always been a really good rivalry and has been really good games through this series, through the year. So I expect another one this year. Rockford's got to stop Jaden Terry, and that wing T offense.
No, I think Granville feels like they have a chance going into this one, maybe more than some years in the past. So I definitely wouldn't want to play him right now. That's for sure.
But Brent Cummings grew up in that wing T offense back in his Belding playing days.
Yep.
I think he's probably got a trick or two up his sleeve or some knowledge to slow that down.
Yeah. Probably, I think we talked about this before the podcast, probably the toughest region,
Yeah.
Region 1, District 1 in Division 2. Traverse City West goes to Muskegon and Mona Shores, and Northview goes to Byron Center.
Yeah, so Northview goes 9-0, and they have to play a road game. And not only have to play a road game, they have to play Byron Center.
Yeah.
And then if you beat Byron Center, your reward is going to be Mona Shores. I mean, you've got 3 of the top 6 teams in Division 2 in this one district. So, get out of this district, and you're going to be pretty confident going forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
You better play your 2 best weeks of football these next 2 weeks.
You go undefeated, you have to go to Byron Center, like you mentioned, but also Byron Center just has a great following. They have people that show up every week. That place is always full, so it's going to be a loud environment. And that team has a good amount of experience on it, too, that I feel like they think that they can make it run themselves. So definitely not going to be easy for Northview, who's really trying to prove themselves this year.
But I also promise you Northview fans will travel. We've
Yes.
seen that with their basketball program. I think their fan base is really excited right now to see this success in football. And they've got some great talent on that team. And they've shown they can win slugfest. They've shown they can score. So that's a dangerous team. But boy, they had probably the worst draw of any good team
So tough.
in the
Unbelievably
state.
Tough.
Yeah, I think they're hoping to get that momentum, keep going. Prove that this regular season wasn't a fluke, and they
Absolutely.
can beat a really good team like Byron Center, who has Landon Tungate, Isaac Lee, lots of weapons on offense, and then they've been playing very good defense as well.
For sure.
I'm sure Byron Center and Mona Shores are going into these playoffs thinking we're good enough to win a state championship. I'm not sure if Northview has that feeling. They've got great confidence, but those 2 teams really were built to come in here and win this year.
Yeah.
And, we'll see. Now you got to make it happen.
Right. Do we think, not that Byron Center would overlook Northview, but obviously they really want redemption potentially against Mona Shores. Do you think there's going to be any looking ahead?
I don't think that'll be allowed.
Yeah.
You might have a player that thinks this, but there won't be a coach that's mentioning Mona Shores anywhere this week.
Right.
Because they'll show him all this film of a 9-0 team that they've got to play, a team that nobody else has been able to beat yet, and a team that believes in itself. So if you make that mistake right now, you're going to be one and done, and guys will start putting on their sneakers and practicing for basketball.
It also could be a good thing for Northview. I mean, like we said, maybe they don't have that mindset yet because they haven't really been there, but that also sometimes can free you up to play as loose as you played all season. So, I wouldn't want to overlook a team that hasn't lost yet this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, Northview definitely lacks that playoff experience that Byron Center has had the past few years under Mark Sisko.
All it takes is one big play to go right, something early in that game for them, and they could get off on a run, and who knows? So it's not someone I'd want to look past.
Yeah.
Drew the toughest draw, but they're still playing with house money.
Yep. Division 3. Let's talk about Zeeland West a little bit. They play obviously rival Zeeland East in that first game. Zeeland West 8-1 on the season. Had another fine season. The only loss was to Uni Christian. So Zeeland West, I think we talked about this as well, has a good chance to make a deep run.
Yeah, for sure.
No question. I mean, there's some pretty good teams in this district, but I don't see anybody in here that I would say, oh yeah, they'll win this game, other than Zeeland West. They've got the great coaching, they've got the great tradition. It's a difficult offense for some coaches to defend.
Yep.
But they just look right now. I'm sure they looked at this region and they went, okay, let's go, guys. Let's take care of business. And then, you look at the next round. Well, we won't look that far ahead.
Yeah.
But, they'll run into some potential trouble here 3 weeks from now if they take care of business.
Right. And I think Zeno West is healthy again. I think quarterback was injured a little bit, missed a couple games here and there, but I think they're healthy again.
No, for sure. And they're moving the ball right. They're a tough offense to stop. I mean, they've proven that all season long. Zealandese did give them a tough time to start that game when they did play earlier in the season. So they're not going to lay down for them. I think it will be a tight game at first just because it is a rivalry game, and I don't think they're going to run away with it. But there's some other teams in that division to look out for. I mean, Forest Central, even though, they're not the team that they were a year ago maybe, they did prove that they can still get some big wins towards the end of the season, and I think that they could be a team to look out for as well.
Yeah, and they get a rematch right away with East Grand Rapids, so they just played these guys. So East has seen what they have, the coaches have a little better idea going in. Kennewick Hills beat Coopersville earlier this year, handed Coopersville its only loss in conference play. Kennewick Hills, interesting. I'll be curious to see. I got a chance to watch them last week. They weren't great, but they took care of business against Sparta. And Grayson Fellows is a really talented, big-armed quarterback. And he's got some weapons. So they've got some speed. They've shown they can score. Can they defend enough in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, they scored 40 points in Coopersville last time they played them. So they can definitely put it up out there. And when Grayson's playing his best, that offense moves. And Don's done a good job with that program getting it there where it's at right now.
Yeah, and Coopersville, obviously a team that won the first River Cities Alliance last week. So they got a little momentum coming into this week. And as I told Andy last week, this is their 100th year of football at Coopersville they're celebrating. So they probably have aspirations to do well in the postseason.
Yes, for sure.
And they stubbed their toe a little bit mid-season there. It was a great last week win to take care of business and beat a pretty good Cedar Springs team the way they did.
Yep. Division 4, number 1 ranked, top ranked. Uni Christian has just been an offensive juggernaut this year, guys, and dominated pretty much every game that they've been in.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know how much trouble they're going to have to start this out. I mean, South Christian's still a team you always want to watch out for. I know we've talked about the trouble they've ran into, not to look ahead or anything, but they're playing Whitehall. But they're playing Holland Christian.
Yep.
But it's Unity. It's just for me hard to see them losing this early on, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen them multiple times this year, and it's just a really well-run machine. Offensively, they're good. Defensively, they're stout. They've got some really good weapons. They don't overwhelm you, but in the end, they overwhelm you. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't hurt themselves. It's really rare that you see that team make a mistake that puts them in trouble.
Yep.
And I'm sure that they're, if they do get up big on a team, I'm sure these guys understand some of the past history of the program. They seem to be over that because every game I've seen, they off to a slow start against Wyoming, but in the end it wasn't, it was crazy how far how much they won by in that game. But it was just, they just come out, play great football. I like Unity to make a deep run here in Division 4.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they'll say they used what happened in the past for motivation, but I'm sure that it is on their mind. Just they've been, most kids playing for that school have been there, growing up, planning to play there. So yeah, I'm sure that they're aware of it, and I think it's definitely a tool you could use. That's for sure.
Yep. South Christian, big win over Catholic Central last week. Finished 5-4. They kind of ended that 4-game losing streak. We kind of talked about, hey, would this team make it, losing 5 in a row to end the season? They were able to get that win, and now they host Holland Christian in that other.
And they were down at half in that game against Catholic Central. So whatever Danny said to him there at half must have worked, because they just kind of lacked a spark the last 4 weeks. I watched them a couple of times, and it was just, against Forest Hill Central, they just, a couple of times they had drives going, and then they just, a penalty or a fumble or, it's really hurt themselves. But, I've seen South enough over the years. They're just so tough, mentally tough. And then to come out and beat Catholic Central when you had to, when you were trailing at half, that'll give them some confidence.
Yeah.
And I still don't know if they've got enough for unity, but
Right.
it's also these kids know each other quite well, so we'll see.
Yeah,
It's
Catholic
this-
Central's been good for so long. To be able to do that is really impressive because they probably want to get a win too going into the playoffs the way their season's kind of went. So.
Yeah. If anyone knows how to win in the postseason, it's Carson Viss and Danny Brown.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
South
for
Christian
sure.
just has that aura about them where like they get into the postseason and maybe it clicks again this year like the last couple years. But you're right, maybe they don't have enough this year to make it back to Ford Field.
If you have Carson Viss playing quarterback, you have a chance
Yeah,
For sure.
very
because
true.
he can just make plays. He's one of those biggest winners we have in West Michigan, on the basketball court, on the football field. The guy just makes big plays when he has to,
Yep.
and so fun to watch, and he raises everybody else's level. So playoff time now. I'm sure Danny and the staff are going, hey, all right, whatever happened this season, forget about it.
Yep.
Let's focus on this game, and let's play our best football now.
Absolutely.
And they've done that on multiple runs deep, as is Catholic Central. As we've got a lot of teams around here who have great playoff history,
Yes.
and a lot of them are in the playoffs.
Yep. One team trying to make some playoff history. Also, it's kind of a division for us. Forestall's Eastern. Couple losses this year, a couple tough ones. Last second loss to West Catholic.
Yep.
They play Whitehall. Whitehall not as good as they have been the last couple years, but obviously rough start. But they've played really well down the stretch.
Yeah, Whitehall's a traditionally good program as well. They've had some good teams in the past. So yeah, I expect that to be a tough one for Forest Hills Eastern. But I think that they came back this year with a little bit of motivation too to be a team that people talked about. So they want to prove something. I think in that West Catholic loss probably still hurts a little bit in the back of their mind just because it was such a close game and everything else. I think they want to prove something. So I would expect them to come out and play really well in this one.
Yeah.
I would too. That would be one of those where they can't be looking ahead to unity.
Absolutely.
Same.
Absolutely.
Because Whitehall will be difficult. Big Rapids the next week has shown they're, an 8-1 team. We've shot them a couple of times, and they're a nice team, but they're not unity.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get to unity unless you're fully focused and ready to go.
Right. Whitehall's quarterback, Camden Thompson.
Camden Thompson.
Obviously brings a very unique skill set, and he can throw the ball and he can run, so he can do lots of different things. He's very versatile. So Forest Hills Eastern is going to have to, be aware of that.
For sure. No doubt. I mean,
Another Carson Viss type. Yeah.
you're right. Anytime you have that ability, that's something you got to watch out for sure.
Yeah. All right, let's go down to Division 5. Catholic Central, obviously defending state champs. We've kind of talked about them, 5-4. I don't think we really expected that's kind of rare for a Catholic Central team, right?
Absolutely.
They play Hopkins. They host Hopkins that first game. And then we have Muskegon Oak Ridge against West Catholic. West Catholic, Jack, do you think West Catholic is a team that has the potential?
Yeah, it's another team that can make a really deep run here. They've shown they've had some really good performances this year. 3 losses. They were in a difficult conference, but of all the teams in this district, that's the one that I pointed to and said, yeah, that's probably the team that can make the deepest run here.
Yeah, Landon's proved he can win since he's gotten the job there. They've been able to get to the state finals and win it. So I would never count them out in the postseason. They obviously have a great tradition as well. They've won multiple state championships in back-to-back years in the past. So they always have a chance. But again, Catholic Central being in that division, we know what they can do too. So
Right. If you look at West Catholic's losses, they lost by 7 to Cincinnati Elder, obviously talented team from Ohio. They lost by 3 to South Christian, and then obviously they lost to Zeeland West in a rare Thursday night game last Thursday. So
Sure.
they lost to some pretty good teams.
no doubt.
And bigger teams.
Yes. Okay, division. Let's just talk real quick about Division 6. Newaygo, Ralph Munger, 7-2. He has turned that. We talked about them earlier in the year, but he's really turned that program around. They play a 4-5 Montague team. I mean, can Newaygo do something in this postseason in Division 6?
I think they could get by Montague if they play their cards right. Again, Montague did put up 70 points in a game over this year. They allowed 64, so maybe their defense isn't as good as it needs to be to stop Newaygo. But I've covered Newaygo a couple times this year, and they had a couple of tough losses to East Count Wood and stuff. So I not really sure what to expect in the postseason, but I do think that they could get the job done against Montague. Who's had not a very traditionally good season, I guess, compared to what they've been in the past.
Right. Jack, what are your thoughts about Newaygo?
I love the job Ralph's done. I also know that he will never let that team get too high on itself.
Yeah.
I had a chance to talk to Ralph at the Grand Rapids Sports Hall of Fame this year. Joe Staley, his old offensive lineman from Rockford, was inducted into the Grand Rapids Sports Hall of Fame, and Joe wasn't able to be there, so I interviewed Joe's dad, Butch, and Ralph on stage to talk about Joe. And before we got into it, we just started talking about it. I said, hey, at the time they were undefeated, I said, how about that start? Fantastic. Congratulations. He's like, yeah, we're 4-0, but we could be 4-5 just like that. It's like, I'm not buying what you're selling there, Ralph. But, it's just great to see because it had been a long dry spell for Newaygo since they'd been in the playoffs. Let me pull this up here. But he's a great coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach. That community is so lucky to have him. 2019, they won 6 games. And then after that, 2 games. Last year, 3 games in Ralph's first year. And now they're 7-2.
That's crazy.
They've played a lot of tight games, but they've got some good wins. Kent City's in the playoffs. Isn't Central Montcalm in this division?
Yes, they're in the other bracket.
Yeah, and they handed Central Montcalm their only loss, right? They're 8-1, and so, their loss is Big Rapids and Reed City, and both those teams are in the playoffs as well. So they've beaten a lot of good teams this year from CSAA. So it's fun to see them make these strides. Again, they've played a lot of close games, 42-38, 27-6. So they've won a lot of these close games, but it's just great to see a community that has had some good success, but never deep runs in the playoffs. And it would be really fun to see how crazy that community would get, because they've had some 10, 12, 11 win or game season. So they've made some runs, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
And this will definitely fire up the Newaygo community to see the Lions make a deep run.
It truly shows what coaching can do too at the high school level. I mean, that doesn't just happen on accident. He was obviously wonderful at Rockford for as long as he was there, and to be able to turn this program around that fast says a lot about the coach he is too.
Yeah. Lastly, just want to talk about 8-player Division II. We have a newcomer, Grand Rapids Sacred Heart. And I know you guys will both remember Joe Hyland, who led West Catholic to back-to-back state titles in 2016 and 17. He kind of started that program from scratch, and they go 9-0 this year, and done a tremendous job as far as the 8-player goes.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? Like you said, started it from nothing, and to be that successful that quickly is really, really impressive. I mean, coming from a place like West Catholic, I'm sure he learned from some people that knew how to win at this level there, and he was able to do it himself when he was the head coach. So that's awesome that he was able to make that change. And you know what, West Catholic's wanted to be good, but obviously he's doing just fine himself. So really, really cool to see that.
Yeah, 9-0 this season, and they play Mount Pleasant Sacred Heart, which has always been kind of a staple in the 8-player as well.
For sure.
So, well, guys, I think that about wraps it up. So looking forward to the next 4 or 5 weeks here of the postseason and the drive to Ford Field.
Absolutely looking forward. We'll probably be talking about some more predictions of games when there starts to be more important head-to-head ones coming up. But it's definitely been fun, and I'm ready to get it started.
Yep.
I know right now we're planning on 22 games for Friday night. And it looks like, I think Sacred Heart might be the only Saturday game, right, from West Michigan. I think everything else is Friday night.
Yes, I think it is.
So,
Yep.
perfect.
Yep, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
So join the Frenzy this Friday, and we'll talk to you soon.